So hey guys, how's it going? And welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to talk a bit about relaxing and what I do to relax. A lot of you who've been watching my channel would be used to how a lot of my life focuses around work, whether it's doing something academia related or whether it's doing a project for my own fun. It's all about work, work, work. And as important work is in life in general, to get ahead, to get where you want to be, it's also really important to make sure that you take enough time off to have a good work-life balance. Now, as someone who in 3-4 years time will be a doctor, I realise that work-life balance is critical. I've spoken to numerous surgeons, numerous fantastic doctors, and even researchers, and they always talk about activities they do that help them relax, de-stress, and reset their mind, so that when they do go back to their work, they do it at the best of their abilities. Now, before I continue, just want to introduce myself again. Sorry for those of you who already know this, but yes, for those of you who don't, I'm Sen. I'm a medic and engineer. I'm in my 4th year of my university studies. Behind me is Jesus College, as you can see, well, the back of Jesus College, and that's where I'm studying here at Cambridge. And yes, welcome to my channel. Do go follow my Instagram if you haven't done so. And I don't usually ask this, but if you are interested in what I make, please do subscribe. It does always help out in terms of showing me what people like and what people don't like. But anyway, back to what we're talking about. Maintaining a good work-life balance, that's absolutely critical in allowing you to achieve what you want to achieve. You do hear some people are able to work 13, 14 hours non-stop, but for me, that's unreasonable. And I'm pretty sure for most of you, that's also unreasonable. And so finding things that help you de-stress is critical, but also you need to make sure that the things that you do to de-stress are time appropriate. So I want to talk a bit about what I do to de-stress, just to hopefully inspire you. Before I do that, I'll talk a bit about what I did at school to de-stress, because a lot of you are still at school, and talking about my university activities might be a bit irrelevant for you. Before I go on, I just want to also mention that a lot of the activities that I did were activities that I did without realizing helped me manage my time well. They were activities that I did without realizing that they were de-stressing me. So don't think that I was going and proactively doing all of these activities. Some of them I just ended up into and enjoyed them so much that they were good de-stressing activities, if that kind of makes sense. So back at school, yes, whether you're in year 7 or year 9 or year 12 doing your A-levels, you've always got to find something that helps you de-stress. In all the typical sports, I was never really the best at football, could barely play basketball. And I think the only game I enjoyed back at primary school was rounders. That's because I could just slog the ball hard and, I'd hit it quite far out. When I got to secondary school, I had already been playing the violin for a few years. I also was doing some South Indian singing. So naturally at school, I got into the boys' choir, and that was fantastic. I wasn't the best at choral singing. I'd never done much of it before. So when I did go to secondary school, I was like, whoa, what is this? But it was fantastic. The learning curve was quite steep, but within a few months, I was performing at the Royal Opera House. I believe when I was 11, I did 13 or 14 performances of La Boheme at the Royal Opera House, and then also went to the Royal Albert Hall a few times to sing. So without even me realizing it, a bit of singing got me so far. And I'll tell you, I've not been back to the Royal Opera House since, so I was doing better when I was 11 than I'm doing now, more than 10 years later. So yes, choral singing was a fun part of school. That was sort of the artsy side of me. I wasn't really artsy anyway, but I guess it just came on with my Carnatic singing, that's South Indian singing, and my violin. But for the sports side of things, at my school in the winter we played a lot of rugby. We had a few playing fields we'd go out to, and again, we had no choice about it. Every week we'd go there for 3 hours, you'd be coached away there. That was good fun on the coaches there, back in the day. Bluetooth was everything, how you sort of communicated and how you sent things across. No airdrop back then. And so the coach journey to my sports grounds would be when everyone would send around music or would send around funny videos. Get there, we'd be forced to run around for like 2 kilometers around the outskirts of our playing fields, and whether it was raining or foggy, you'd have to go running around it, and even if we were freezing and cold and tired, you'd have to run. And then we'd have a bit of rugby practice. I was never really good at rugby, and so for me it was just a matter of getting there and standing around, getting a bit aggressive and playing a bit, but just running around in the field basically. Some of the kids at my school had played rugby before in their life, and so for them it was very natural playing it. Yes, I remember the first time they sort of thought I was good, they let me play, and I ended up thinking a scrum was something you just sort of fly into and try and grab the ball out of, and I went and ran in there, ended up being stepped on with some studs, which wasn't pleasant. And since then my mum said, Sen, whenever you're playing rugby, if you see the ball, run away from it, not towards it. So that incident summarizes my experience with rugby. Yes, in the winter terms we played rugby, and then in the summer terms we played cricket. Again, although I was Sri Lankan, I had no clue about cricket. As in, some of the kids would come in with these like massive bags with like 2-3 cricket bats, and they'd sit there, you know, tapping their cricket bats with some stone. And I was like, what on earth are they doing? What I enjoyed more was quick cricket. You get those plastic bats, a few tennis balls, and you slog it again. I think for me, I just found the satisfaction in just smashing things really far away. Again, rounders, quick cricket, I think there's a bit of a theme here. So that's how my summers went, so cricket. Until I got into year 9, and when I got to year 9, that's when the school boat club was, you know, taking in most of the students. Rowing before year 9 is not the best of things because, you know, if you're not training properly, and you know, since you're growing, it can be damaging. Although rowing is one of the sort of the least impact heavy sports there are, still for a young kid who's like 11 or 12, putting so much force through your body isn't the best of things. So in year 9, went to the boat club trials, got into the boat club, and even for that, the first time you go along, they tell you to get into a boat, and they're like, right, now push the blades forward, and you're like, you don't know what you're doing, you just push them forward. Turns out, if you push your blades forward in a boat, you capsize. And even though you've capsized, you've then got to swim, I think, 50 meters just to prove that you can swim. That was pretty funny. And then after that, I rowed for the rest of my time at school. So yes, that was a progression of my extracurricular activities. But what it shows is that sometimes you're doing sports which you don't really enjoy. But even the rugby or cricket that I did early on in my school career, which I'm saying now I didn't really have too much fun doing, I'm sure back in the day was still a good break for me from just sitting in lessons all day and getting quite bored at times. Actually, to be fair, I've got quite some fun memories, as I'm saying to you guys. But yes, during school time, the main activities that I did for a good work-life balance was chorus singing and rowing. That said, between year 10 and year 11 and year 12-ish, I sort of gave up chorus singing because I found myself rowing a lot more. I was far more tired than I thought I'd be, and so it was just difficult to fit into my schedule. And so, of course, I had to prioritize and give up choral singing. But I did get back into it in year 12. And when I came to Jesus College here at university, I very much considered joining the choir again. But 4 years on, I do regret that I didn't join the choir. Oh, it's not only been a wonderful part of my life, I think it's a wonderful part of culture generally. In that case, I'd say, to be fair, any sort of singing is a wonderful part of many cultures. And yeah, it's a shame I gave it up, because now if I try and sing, I probably sound like a frog croaking. That's my school stuff, and I think at school I also did some other things, some more random things, such as I made a school medical journal during lunch times, me and my two friends, one of whom is a medic at Oxford. I'm not sure what happened to the other one. But yeah, we all started a gardening society. Actually, it wasn't called the Gardening Society, it was called the Horticultural Society. Talk about sounding pretentious. So, although it sounds really, posh and all, it really wasn't. There was this part of our school which looked like crap. Some guy had made some sculpture from, this plaster or something, and it looked really great for a few years. But after a few years, a white sculpture that's exposed to the elements looked nasty, mossy and gross. So we decided, right, this small patch of grass, we're going to transform it from this crappy looking place to a beautiful garden. Now we did that, not really because of the gardening, because we just wanted to find a way of getting our Duke of Edinburgh skills signed off, whilst having fun. Within a matter of a year and a half, we'd created a rather nice garden actually. It took a few weeks of work, especially during the autumn time and the springtime where, the ground is cooler, so that's when you plant all the bulbs and all that. But yes, that garden was very nice, and in the summer it was blooming, all the teachers were amazed by it. And just so that everyone knew that we made that garden, we even put a plaque in there. That was good fun, And we called it Le Petit Jardin in French. Just to, again, show off to our French teachers that we could speak a bit of French. So yeah, those things I also got up to, and they're more relaxed things I did. Nothing as major as, I'd say, rowing or chorus singing. So those things are what contributed to the core values and principles that I have these days, whereas all these other things are more fun. And so what you should also try and do is find activities which give you principles, which help you work out what your motivations are, which help you sort of ground yourself once in a while. It's good to have these things because later on, when life does get quite difficult, when life does get quite stressful, you can come back to these activities that you've been doing for so many years, and surprisingly, they will ground you. And yeah, for example, like when I'm doing some work here when it's getting quite tough, all it takes is literally listening to some choral music or a few hymns, and it's less so about the actual content of those. It's more about bringing back the memories I had and the joys I had of actually performing when I was younger. And